How to accept yourself. This is one of the most transformative shifts you'll ever make in your life. Because self-acceptance isn't just a concept to think about. It's the foundation upon which your entire relationship with life is built. It's the difference between living in constant tension with who you are and living in harmony with your own being. What you'll discover in this video will show you what self-acceptance truly means at its core. We'll explore why acceptance is so different from resignation, how it creates the conditions for genuine growth, and why fighting against yourself has kept you stuck. You'll understand that accepting all your emotions, fear, anger, sadness, joy, is part of being fully human, and how this acceptance, paradoxically, gives you the strength to move forward. We'll talk about what happens when you stop demanding that you be different before you can be okay. We'll discover why even the most courageous people feel fear first, and how accepting that fear is what allows them to act with courage. We'll explore how embracing your full emotional reality creates the only solid ground from which authentic growth can happen. By the end of this journey, you'll understand that acceptance isn't weakness or defeat. It's the most powerful stance you can take toward yourself. It's the beginning of freedom. What self-acceptance actually is. Self-acceptance is the practice of recognizing your reality as it is right now, without adding layers of judgment or shame. It's seeing yourself clearly, the whole picture, and saying, "This is what's here. This is what's true, and I can work with this." When you look at yourself and see anxiety, you're acknowledging there is anxiety here. This is my current state. You're meeting what is with clear eyes, without demanding it be different before you can move forward. This is profoundly different from how most of us relate to ourselves. Most of us are in constant argument with our reality. We feel anxious and immediately think we shouldn't. We make a mistake and condemn ourselves. We feel sad and judge ourselves for not being stronger. We're constantly layering criticism onto what is, creating a secondary suffering on top of the primary experience. Self-acceptance means dropping that secondary layer. It means meeting yourself where you actually are. It's acknowledging, I feel this. I'm experiencing this. This is part of my human experience right now. Not as something wrong, but as something real. And here's what's crucial. Acceptance doesn't mean you like everything you're experiencing. It doesn't mean you think everything is perfect. It means you're starting from reality rather than from a fantasy of who you wish you were or what you wish you were feeling. Think of it this way. If you're lost in a forest and want to find your way home, the first step is acknowledging where you actually are. You can wish you were somewhere else. You can berate yourself for getting lost, but none of that helps you find your way. Only when you accept, I am here, in this specific spot, can you begin to navigate effectively. Self-acceptance is that acknowledgement. I am here. This is my starting point. These are my current emotions, my struggles, my limitations. This is what I'm working with. And from this honest recognition, real movement becomes possible. The full spectrum of human emotion. One of the deepest forms of self-acceptance is accepting your emotions, all of them. Fear, anger, sadness, jealousy, shame, joy, love, excitement. The entire spectrum of human feeling. Because here's a truth that our culture often tries to deny. All emotions are part of being human. All of them are normal. All of them have a place. You're not broken because you feel afraid. You're not weak because you feel sad. You're not bad because you feel angry. These emotions are part of the human operating system. They're information, signals, responses to your experience of life. And rejecting them doesn't make them go away. It just adds shame and resistance on top of the original feeling. Think about fear. Fear is so often treated as something to eliminate, to overcome, to be ashamed of. But fear is protective. It's your system alerting you to potential danger, asking you to pay attention. The feeling itself isn't the problem. The problem is when we add judgment to it. I shouldn't be afraid. What's wrong with me? I'm such a coward. And here's where something beautiful emerges. The most courageous people aren't people who don't feel fear. They're people who feel fear and act anyway. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear, accepting that it's there, and then making a conscious choice to take the step forward despite it. The courageous person feels their heart racing before the big presentation. They notice the fear. They don't pretend it's not there. They don't shame themselves for feeling it. They acknowledge, yes, there's fear here. This matters to me. This feels risky. And then, from that place of honest acknowledgement, they choose to step forward anyway. This is the paradox. Accepting your fear actually makes it possible to be brave. When you're fighting against your fear, all your energy goes into that internal battle. You're trying to suppress it, deny it, overcome it. But when you accept it, when you say, yes, I'm afraid, and that's okay, you free up energy to actually move through it. The same is true for all difficult emotions. When you accept your sadness, you can let yourself grieve and heal. When you accept your anger, you can understand what boundary was crossed and respond appropriately. When you accept your jealousy, you can explore what it reveals about your desires and insecurities. Emotions aren't problems to solve. They're part of the richness of being alive. They're how you know you care about things, how you navigate your world, how you understand what matters to you. A life without the full range of emotion wouldn't be a better life. It would be a diminished life, a half-lived life. Self-acceptance means welcoming all of it. The joy and the sorrow, the confidence and the doubt, the love and the fear. All of it is you. All of it is human. All of it deserves to be acknowledged and allowed rather than rejected and suppressed. When you accept your emotions as valid parts of your experience, you stop being at war with yourself. You stop dividing yourself into acceptable parts and unacceptable parts. You become whole. And from that wholeness, you can engage with life fully, feel deeply, and respond authentically. The paradox of acceptance and growth. Here's where self-acceptance reveals its deeper wisdom. The moment you truly accept yourself as you are, you create the conditions for genuine change. This sounds contradictory. How can accepting yourself lead to growth? But this is the beautiful paradox. When you're fighting against yourself, when you're in constant rejection of who you are, all your energy goes into that internal war. You're so busy hating your anxiety that you have no capacity to understand it. You're so busy condemning your mistakes that you can't learn from them. You're paralyzed by shame about your limitations. Rejection creates rigidity. When you reject a part of yourself, you freeze it in place. You create such tension around it that it can't move, can't evolve, can't integrate. It becomes this thing you have to constantly defend against, hide, compensate for. And all that resistance actually keeps the pattern locked. Acceptance creates space. When you accept that you feel afraid, something shifts. The fear is still there, but now you're not adding the extra layer of shame about feeling afraid. You're not fighting it, which means you're not feeding it with resistance. And in that space, you can actually be curious about it. You can ask, what is this fear protecting me from? What would it take to move forward despite it? This is how courage emerges. You feel the fear. You accept it's there. You acknowledge it as a normal human response. And then, from that place of acceptance, you can consciously choose your action. The fear doesn't have to disappear for you to be brave. You just have to accept it's part of the experience and decide to act anyway. Think about learning any skill. You can't improve at something you won't acknowledge you're struggling with. A musician who won't accept they're hitting wrong notes can't correct them. An athlete who won't accept their current fitness level can't train appropriately. Acceptance of where you are is the prerequisite for getting anywhere else. The same is true internally. When you accept your patterns, you can understand them and gradually shift them. When you accept your wounds, you can heal them. When you accept your current level of courage, you can take the next small step that builds it. But when you're in rejection, when you're saying, "I shouldn't be like this, I should be braver already," you're stuck in resistance rather than moving toward growth. Acceptance doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're finally creating the conditions where real change becomes possible. You're stepping out of the exhausting cycle of self-rejection and into the creative space of self-understanding and conscious choice. The weight of self-rejection. Most of us carry an enormous weight we don't even realize is there. The weight of constant self-rejection. It's the background belief that who we are isn't okay, that what we feel isn't acceptable, that we need to be fundamentally different to be worthy. This self-rejection shows up everywhere. It's there when you can't enjoy your achievements because you're focused on what you didn't accomplish. It's there when you can't rest because you haven't earned it yet. It's there when you feel sad and immediately tell yourself to get over it, to be positive, to stop being weak. And this rejection of your own humanity is exhausting. It takes tremendous energy to be at war with yourself, to wake up already disappointed in who you are, to move through life rejecting your own emotional experience, to feel you need to be different, braver, happier, calmer, stronger, before you deserve peace. What does this cost you? It costs you presence. You can't be fully here when you're constantly rejecting what's here. It costs you connection. It's hard to be authentic with others when you're ashamed of your own feelings. It costs you the ability to actually process your emotions because you're too busy trying to suppress them. It also prevents you from developing real courage, because courage requires you to acknowledge your fear first. If you're rejecting your fear, shaming yourself for feeling it, you can't work with it. You're stuck trying to pretend it's not there, which paradoxically gives it more power over you. When you accept your fear as normal, as human, as information, then you can feel it fully, understand what it's telling you, and make a conscious choice about how to respond. That's the path to genuine bravery. Not the absence of fear, but the acceptance of it and the choice to act despite it. Self-rejection keeps you small. It keeps you hiding. It keeps you performing a version of yourself that you think is acceptable while rejecting the fullness of who you actually are. And that's a heavy burden to carry through life. The practice of acceptance. So how do you actually practice self-acceptance? How do you shift from rejection to acceptance when rejection has been your default? It starts with awareness. Notice when you're rejecting yourself. Notice when you're judging your emotions. Oh, there I am telling myself I shouldn't be nervous. There I am shaming myself for feeling sad. Just notice without adding more judgment to it. Then comes the practice of allowing. When you notice fear, instead of immediately trying to make it go away or judging yourself for feeling it, you pause. You acknowledge, there's fear here. That's okay. That's human. What does it feel like? Where is it in my body? This isn't about wallowing in emotion. It's about giving it space to be present, to be felt, to be understood. When you allow an emotion rather than fight it, it often moves through you more easily. It's the resistance that keeps things stuck. You can practice this with any emotion you've been rejecting. That jealousy you feel, can you acknowledge it without shame? That anger that arises, can you recognize it as valid information? That fear before something important, can you accept it as part of caring about the outcome? And then comes the crucial step, choosing your action from a place of acceptance rather than rejection. You feel the fear, and you accept it's there. And then you ask, given that this fear is present, what do I want to do? Do I want to let it stop me, or do I want to feel it and move forward anyway? This is where courage lives, in that gap between feeling the fear and choosing the action. The courageous person doesn't wait for the fear to disappear. They accept it's there, and they take the step anyway. They acknowledge, I'm scared and I'm doing this. That's self-acceptance in action. The practice also involves speaking to yourself differently. Instead of, I shouldn't be afraid, try, I'm feeling afraid, and that makes sense given what I'm facing. Instead of, what's wrong with me for feeling this way, try, this is a normal human emotion, and I can work with it. This isn't forced positivity. It's basic kindness toward your own humanity. You're allowed to feel what you feel. You're allowed to be where you are. And from that acceptance, you can choose where you want to go. Conclusion. How to accept yourself. It begins with recognizing that all your emotions, fear, sadness, anger, joy, are normal parts of being human. It continues with allowing them to be present rather than fighting against them. It deepens when you understand that accepting your fear is what makes courage possible. Self-acceptance doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you finally create the ground where real growth can happen. You are allowed to feel afraid and still be brave. You are allowed to feel sad and still move forward. You are allowed to feel all the messy, complicated, beautiful emotions that make you human. Accepting them doesn't make you weak. It makes you whole. When you accept yourself with all your emotions, all your imperfections, all your humanity, you stop fighting an unwinnable war. You free up all that energy for actually living. You become able to feel your fear and take the courageous step. To feel your sadness and let it teach you. To feel your full range of emotions and still choose your path forward. This is the gift of self-acceptance. The freedom to be fully human. The strength that comes from embracing rather than rejecting who you are. The courage that emerges when you accept your fear and act anyway. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with me. I hope you carry something from this conversation into your day, into your life. Be gentle with yourself until we meet again.